So it has been nearly 10 years since I moved to the Quad Cities in Davenport area, and I was just thinking, I feel like a local now, but I wasn't always that way. So I was thinking about all the different oddities that I discovered when I moved here, and now that I have more of a local's perspective, I think I'm in a good spot to tell you guys what to expect and if you might like it or not when you get here. So wrote down a few things and I'm gonna talk about them and let you know what you may or may not like about the Quad Cities. Now, I did title this about Davenport, but it is gonna be about the Quad Cities and Davenport because some of the things do apply for both of them. But let's get the lay of the land first. Let's look at a map and we'll show you where Davenport is, Bettendorf is, Rock Island, Moline, and those are really the big four when we're talking about the Quad Cities. Because it's 4 cities doesn't mean it's actually necessarily just 4 cities. Because we have places like East Moline, we have Milan, we have Eldridge, LeClaire, all of those cities mixed in there, plus many, many more. But one oddity that I noticed about when I moved here is just how the city was kind of developed, and actually really all the cities, because all of the cities really started out as old river towns. I mean, the Mississippi is right there, and that's where things started. So when you're moving here, the thing that you'll notice is typically the closer you're getting to the river, the older the buildings are, the older the houses are, and as you're moving away from the river, the newer the developments are. It's where everything new is getting built, and you can see that observed in pretty much every city. I mean, if you're in Davenport or Bettendorf, that means everything that is the north side, that's where the new stuff is, and in Moline and Rock Island, everything's south. Now, Moline and Rock Island are a little bit different in that they have the Rock River on the south side, so they're kind of bounded on 2 sides. So their new stuff is a little bit more intermixed, but in Davenport and Bettendorf, very well. It's the further you get away from the river, the newer the stuff is. So just a little bit of an oddity because all the downtowns are close to the river, and that's where the cities really began. And that's another great point to bring up is pretty much every city does have some sort of downtown area. Bettendorf is really developing their downtown area. Davenport is really revitalizing their downtown because they kind of got away from that for a while. And then Rock Island and Moline, they're going under some big changes. Rock Island specifically, they're really trying to reinvent themselves in downtown areas there. So it's cool to see that, but yeah, every different city that is part of the actual core 4, they each have their own downtown areas with the entertainment and everything that goes on along those lines. Now, we are the Quad Cities, and it does feel like a big community here, but another oddity that you'll see and observe is about the difference in the 2 different states, because we are right on the Mississippi. That is the state border between Iowa and Illinois, and the animosity that can go between, even though we're just right across the river, you can observe it between people. Now, is it, nefarious or like I hate those people? No, not necessarily. But there is a little bit of kind of a competition between the 2 sides. Some people are never going to Illinois, and some people are never gonna go to Iowa as far as where they're gonna live. Now, people do cross the river all the time to go to work, to go to entertainment, depending on what it is, but you do see that animosity. And I think I interviewed a guy on a couple videos ago, and he put it really, really good. So I'm gonna put up a clip of what he talked about and see what he has to say about it. Now, we like to cover the good and the bad.
Sure.
What would you say the most disappointing part about the Quad Cities is?
Again, I think some of that goes back to the split in affluence between this side of the river and the Illinois side of the river for whatever reasons.
So you can obviously see that it's not just me saying it. He also has an opinion about Iowa versus Illinois. And some people really care about it and some people don't. But when you move here, people are going to be talking about it. So just be ready for that big difference in what people like and not like when it comes to the state difference. Now, another thing that I found super, not odd, but just lacking when I moved here was the amount of public land and wilderness type areas. I grew up in western Iowa with the less hills and just boatloads of public land that you can go hunting and fishing on. And I kind of think I took that for granted when I was living there as a kid and a teenager, because when I moved to eastern Iowa nearly 10 years ago, I noticed there really wasn't a lot of that going on. Now, it's not to say that there isn't any options. There are definitely options. On the Iowa side, we have places like Scott County Park. We have Wildcat Den over there in Muscatine. And then the Illinois side, we have places like Loud Thunder. So there are places to go and get out. But the biggest difference is the amount of them, for one, and the amount of people in proximity, because all of that land in western Iowa that I was used to, there really wasn't a big population center to fill up that land. So you'd be out there by yourself most of the time, versus here when you go to like Scott County Park or Wildcat Den, you have a bunch of people around you that are probably doing a lot of the same activities, which is fine, but if you want to get away, it's a little bit harder to do that. And the other one I want to point out, which I don't really utilize that much, is the Mississippi River and the recreational activities that you can do on there. A lot of people like to go boating. They like to do some rowing. I know they have like the rowboat teams that go up and down the river sometimes, specifically in Moline. So that's another great option. It's just not one that I utilize just because I don't have a boat. And if you're watching this and you have a boat, let me know. Maybe I can go out on the river with you. I don't know.
Okay.
But anyway, so yes, lack of wilderness areas was somewhat of a curiosity to me, because I was so used to having a ton of public land to utilize without a lot of other people around. And I do miss that part of it, but the Quad Cities has a lot more to offer than western Iowa, so I can live with it, at least for now. Now, if you're moving to the Quad Cities and you just are not really sure which one, is it gonna be Davenport, Bettendorf, Rock Island, Moline? Well, lucky for you, I am a licensed realtor here and I know both sides of the river very well, and I can help you find that perfect neighborhood for you and your family. So my number is popping up down below. I'd love to help you out. I am the one that answers all those phone calls, emails, and text messages. Now, when I moved here, I was coming from a small town, like I said before, only about 1,500 people. So I, in my mind, was moving to this giant city of the Quad Cities, which we're sitting at about 400,000 on both sides of the river combined, which is a decently sized city, especially if you're looking at the state of Iowa. I mean, Des Moines is our biggest city and it's not even at 1 million people yet. So 400,000, that's pretty big. But the thing that surprised me about the Quad Cities is the different lifestyles that you can actually have in the Quad Cities. And what do I specifically mean? I mean, you can be a city dweller. You can have the downtown lifestyle in the higher rise apartments and go out to the bars and the restaurants, all within walking distance. So you can have that kind of lifestyle. In fact, when I first moved here, a great friend of mine, he had one of those apartments, and I spent a lot of time there because when I first moved here, I was still in more of a party phase and I wanted to go out and see people and meet new people. So I got to hang out downtown a lot of times in his apartment. So it's cool to see that. But you also have the suburban lifestyle, which I will say is probably the majority of the Quad Cities. Most people are living in single family houses, maybe some apartments, and you have that suburban feel. You have to use your car to get around, all of that sort of stuff. But it's a great little niche. But on top of it, even in the Quad Cities, you still have the opportunity to have rural living, which is kind of what I was used to, because small town living is very similar to rural living. You can get outside the city and still be in the city. Davenport has a lot of farmland that is still a part of the city proper, so you still have that opportunity to have that rural lifestyle, even though the suburbs are expanding out into those areas. So having those three different lifestyles all within the Quad Cities, I found very fascinating, because I thought I was moving to this big, large city and there's gonna be massive people everywhere. And part of that is true, but you do have the opportunity to choose what kind of lifestyle you want, even if you are living in the Quad Cities. You know, something that wasn't really a surprise to me, but just something that I've observed, especially as of recently, is the weather patterns in the Quad Cities. If you're moving here, there's an old wives' tale that we don't get hit by major weather storms because we have the Mississippi. It separates the storms or something. There's no scientific fact behind that. We do still get some storms, but once in a while you do question, does the Mississippi actually have an effect on that? Now, what kind of weather am I talking about? I'm talking about hailstorms, thunderstorms, tornadoes, and let me tell you, we do get tornadoes. I had a gentleman comment on one of my past videos that we don't get tornadoes. It does happen, and I can tell you because just last week, my neighborhood got hit by a tornado. Now everybody is fine. It was an EF1, which is a low category as far as tornadoes go, but it did make the neighborhood look like it exploded. Like all the trees were bent up, broken, snapped power lines. We were out of power 27 hours. So it was quite an experience for me. And I've said in the past that I've lived in Iowa my whole life and I've never seen a tornado. And I can still say that because I didn't technically see the tornado, but if you look at the path that it took, it went right over the top of my house and it did do some damage in my neighborhood. Again, I'm fine, my family's fine, but it was something that does happen. And I live close to the river, and in fact, this tornado crossed the Mississippi River. So it's completely a wives' tale. If somebody tells you that when you move here that we don't get major storms because of the Mississippi, it's simply not true. Although it can seem that way sometimes when storms come to town, they seem to break up once in a while. So keep that in mind. If you're moving here, we do get severe weather and you gotta be prepared for it. Is it a major threat all the time? No, but it does happen, and I can speak from experience because it just happened to me. Now, talking about the community again, if you're moving to the Quad Cities, I thought, again, I was moving to this big, large city where nobody's gonna know anybody, and that's not true. I mean, I grew up from a small town, and I knew everybody in the town pretty much, and coming here, I was a little worried about it. But now that I'm here, I know my neighbors. I know people all across. I run into people all the time, and it does have that community feel. It's not a small town, but you still have the small town vibe just because you do run into people you meet all the time. And some people really, really like that. I really like it, and I probably wouldn't have stayed here as long as I have if I didn't have that community feel, because that's what I grew up with, and that's what I really liked about growing up, is having that nice, close-knit community. So it's great to have, and I've observed it right here in the Quad Cities in Davenport. So keep that in mind. If you want that, you're probably gonna find it here. Now, something else I observed when moving to Davenport was just the amount of mom and pop shops. So just a little background on me. I graduated with a mechanical engineering degree. I moved here to work for Alcoa, which at the time was a Fortune 500 company. So I was expecting just large companies everywhere I went. And don't get me wrong, there's plenty of large companies here. I mean, we're the headquarters of John Deere, which is an enormous company. But the thing that did surprise me is the amount of mom and pop shops all over the city. You know, we have a great brewery scene here. We have great boutiques all around. And I really like that atmosphere because it's local made, local people running it, and just stirring on the local economy is just something I'm super passionate about. Obviously, I have my own small business, so it's become even more important to me in the recent years. But I see it all over the Quad Cities. That is not just me speaking, and I really, really like it. So if you like the atmosphere of mom and pop shops, you're gonna like the Quad Cities and Davenport because we have a lot of them. And if you don't, well, we also have a lot of the big corporations that can offer great job opportunities. So both are good to have, and a good mixture is a great thing. And if you're watching this, you probably are a little bit curious about moving to Davenport or the Quad Cities. And again, I am a licensed realtor here, and I'd love to help you find that perfect neighborhood for you and your family. So hit me up, give me a call. I'd love to help you out. I am the one that answers all those phone calls, emails, and text messages. But if you're just curious about what Davenport actually looks like, well, check out this Davenport vlog where I take you through the entire city of Davenport. So check it out.